Hello, dear colleagues. I would like to present my research for EBNESS Congress Series on Economics, Business and Management Conference. And our research topic is economic model for the formation of optimal structure of a portfolio of government securities of commercial banks in the Republic of Moldova. The authors of this research topic is me, MULIC Andrei, PhD in Economics, Associate Professor, Faculty of Economic Science, Department of Finance and Banking, Moldova State University, and GAVLITCHI Chiril, PhD student, the same Faculty of Economic Science, Department of Finance and Banking, and Moldova State University. I will start with actually of research topic is determined by the problems related to investments in government securities, namely the formation of an optimal portfolio of government securities. State securities are one of the most attractive instruments, both from a point of view of issuers, I mean government, and from a point of view of the investors. The aim and objectives of the research is to develop the economic and mathematical model for the formation of an optimal portfolio of government securities in the context of the existence of risk of default and alternative investment preferences. The methodological basis of current research was the different works of domestic and foreign economists and practitioners dealing with the problems of government securities portfolio management and investment analysis. The most relevant obtained results from the research. First of all, it's taking into account the situation of the government securities market in the Republic of Moldova. Special attention is paid to the risk of default, methods for assessing the risk of stopping the flow of payment have been developed. The analysis of a factor influencing the structure of the optimal portfolio was carried out, and the main parameters that must fully meet the goals of the investor were determined. On the basis of the investigated information, a model of the optimal portfolio structure was created in this research. And I will start with introduction of this research. Investment activity on the state security market is a complex process that requires consideration of many factors in the modeling process. There are many models that solve the main objectives of investor, such as forecasting the future value of security, for example, building a portfolio, creating a portfolio of the most attractive financial instruments, or it can be maximizing the return on the portfolio and minimizing different kinds of financial risks. The state security market in the Republic of Moldova has a number of disadvantages. However, in a developed market economy, government security has been and remain the most important financial instrument. Therefore, if the state intends to regulate the economy and influence economic processes in the country, it will do so not only by creating and controlling the implementation of laws, but also as an active participant in the financial field through financial market intervention. This is fully achieved only after obtaining the status like a state as trusted borrower. Only in this condition will the state securities market start to function in the required level. Research is based on development of econometric model for the management of portfolio of government securities, taking into account the new investment condition in national and international financial markets. It is therefore necessary to consider all possible events that may occur in the financial market. Therefore, investment in government securities are analyzed taking into account the risk of default, the risk of stopping the flow of payment. It is necessary to research various models of forming an optimal portfolio of government securities, depending on the different preferences of investors, different kinds of investors, in view of the change that have taken place in the world economic condition by the influence of the COVID-19 pandemic and previous government deficiency in the state security market. Um, about literature review of our research. Investors face the problems of assessing the value of assets, which is term dependent of their risk and rate. According to the research by Brayley Myers, model is maintained in the market, the high the potential risk, the high expected return. Markowitz Tobin pointed out that each investor has his own prediction about market parameters. Chiril argues that the market is constantly moving towards a certain assessment of the balance of risk and return assets. Possible deviation in estimates are primarily related to asymmetric information held by different investors and will develop market conditions. New information is quickly reflected in the market value of assets. Therefore, for such condition, it's possible to develop a model that optimally described the relationship between risk and expected return on assets. This model was developed in the mid-1960s by William Sharpe and Litton and were named the Capital Asset Pricing Model, like a CAPM. Therefore, no paper has been published on this issue of handling investment in government securities for alternative investments in related assets due to the fact that the issue has arisen very recently. About data sources and used methods in our research. The process of creating the model was preceded by an in-depth analysis of all internal and external factors affecting the efficiency and risk of portfolio investment in government securities. The methods of the theory of optimal portfolio, theory of risk, statistical methods of theoretical and probabilistic models were used in research method. Formation of formulas, verification, calculation, and the formation of relationship of different kinds of factors in the model and indicators were carried out using Excel and a personal computer. And the result of our research and discussion. First of all, in the securities market, government securities are not exception. There are two main types of financial market participants. First, there are organization or individual who act in the interest of the client as intermediaries. The second type is entities that invest their own funds in securities. Therefore, nothing prevents the first group of people to work on the securities market with both the clients, funds, and their own financial resources. In the process of managing an investment portfolio, it has to solve two problems. First, risk determination and projected return on the portfolio. To do this, he must find of the client's preference in terms of risk and profitability parameters, tax regime, investment horizon, estimate transaction cost for portfolio formation and management, determine the expected risk and return on assets selected for inclusion in the portfolio, a degree of correlation between their returns, and secondly, to determine the real dynamics of portfolio indicators in the process of management. It's necessary to revise it in the process of selling and buying assets. In the process of elaboration the Kinematic model for the formation of optimal structure of a portfolio, it is necessary to determine the investment horizon and to select the optimal structure, the hypothesis that the risk conditions are stationary with time horizon. In the next step, when external conditions change, the portfolio structure needs to be revised. The base of the proposed mechanism for forming a portfolio of government securities is the model for optimizing the portfolio structure. Government bonds are short-term discount securities with zero coupon for which the yield to maturity and maturity date are known. The portfolio consists of different instruments. It's like government securities with different measures. As a result, the flow of payment received is calculated with no frequency, like a week, month, depends on the period. The amount of investment funds is denoted by 2, and the time horizon in the method is denoted by t. At times we have 1 to t. The securities will be redetermined at yield v, and the financial resources received are reinvested in x proportion in government securities, and 1 minus x in foreign currency. The final fact fixing of security and foreign exchange earning takes place at time t. The exchange rate is changed with a growth rate noted by c. The probability of default we note by d for the period t plus 1, and is determined based on the estimation of expected time of default t, and takes place mathematical expression like d equal to 1 divided to t plus 1. To determine the t value, the expert method can be used, but also data of the dynamics of macroeconomic indicators of a financial market, the ratio between the trend of government loans and the government securities market and the trend of value internal loans. After the non-fulfillment of obligation, the money previously allocated by investors for the purchase of government securities is transferred to the foreign exchange market. There is sharp jump in the exchange rate. If bankruptcy or default occurs for a period t plus 1, and the rate of increase the exchange rate instead of 1c equal 1 plus c will be ECD, and 1 plus c, 1 plus cd. Based on the date of the volume of financial resources that suddenly appeared on the foreign exchange market and the volume of gold and foreign exchange reserves, the value of a CD is estimated to increase or vary in case of default. And the next figure 1 shows a diagram of distribution process for investment in government securities EMS and currency time t. And you can see a period of time t0 or t3, different kind of investment allocation process. In case of default, in the interval t plus 1, the income will come only from foreign exchange investment amounting to t EVTP 0. The solution to the problem is to build the dependence of the current expected value of income and the Western distribution policy, where from x in the form Vx and the choice x divided to max V. Therefore, the fixing of income on security takes place at time t only in the absence of a bankruptcy. Default, the alternative return for this receipt is the rate of increase on the exchange rate C. On the other hand, since foreign currency is a market assets with free transaction, the current price is equal to the present value of its future price, and at any time t under stationary market condition, you can see the formula of this transaction with current price P0. Therefore, we will develop a following scheme for calculation of the expected value of a revenue stream, and you can see in table 1. This diagram describes the probability distribution of possible income, where Q is the probability value. It's you can use this dynamics of distribution of machinery segment and gross premium right in the third quarter of period, for example, 2015, 2019. We will not Q divided to 1 plus C, where R, D plus C, Q expected rate on return for an investor neutral risk. Therefore, according to the given probability distribution, mathematical expectation of today income is equal to this equation. From the scheme of process of observed, we can calculate ET for period T1, T minus 1, and we can calculate IT, where the value X represents the growth rate index. Therefore, taking into account E0, the development of equation presented is subsequent research will make it possible to form an algorithm for forming the optimal structure of the investment portfolio of commercial banks at the national or international levels. The algorithm will make it possible with a high degree of profitability to determine the investment direction of financial funds for commercial banks in terms of their distribution between government securities and foreign currency, which in this case presented handling financial instruments for default risk. The conclusion, I can say that the analysis of the development and history of the state securities market in the Republic of Moldova shows that, first of all, the market of state securities in the Republic of Moldova is not sufficiently stable. And it's a very big problem for security market. In order to work effectively in the state security market, it is necessary to be sure of a risk. The handling method is used. It is necessary to develop an effective method of minimizing the risk of investment in the portfolio of government securities. And after our analyzing and researching portfolio investment in government securities, we can conclude, first of all, like a classical model, it's like a portfolio theory, are not suitable for a portfolio of government securities under modern conditions. It is necessary to develop a special economic and mathematical model that take into account the risk of bankruptcy, its risk of default, which have a force majeure character. It is necessary to research the model of investment risk, which the force majeure. In the modern condition of the Republic of Moldova, the foreign currency can be used as a handling element or insurance for risk of default. And last conclusion, I can say that the elaboration of the econometric model and of an algorithm for calculation of the structure will allow maximizing the value of the investment portfolio for commercial banks. Dear colleagues, thank you for your attention.